If you've been going around the good old internet looking for the right podcast to fulfill your New York Yankees needs, well, I'll be the first to deliver the good news to you. You have found it. Here on Yapping Yankees with me, your host, Mike Scudero, you and I will be discussing the latest news, takes, and talk throughout the entire Yankee universe. Oh, and there may be some ranting on my behalf. Yeah. Anyway, what do you say we get to it? Let's get to yapping! Well, hello there, my fellow Yankee fans, and welcome to episode 219 of the Yapping Yankees podcast. And as always, I am your host, Mike Scudero, here on May 5th, 2024. My goodness, guys, what an eventful day it's been. I do not even know where to begin. I got back from my brother's birthday lunch over in the Bronx on Arthur Avenue with my dad and his side. As I said last week I was going to be doing. My brother's birthday was this past Friday, just a couple of days ago. Again, happy birthday to my awesome brother Thomas. You are literally my best friend. Love you, kid. And the lunch was good. Phenomenal, in fact, because Dominic's on Arthur Avenue is one of the best restaurants around. Except it would have been even better if it was a nice day out, because today here in New York, it is beyond crappy. So that sucked, having to drive all the way to the Bronx with it muggy and rainy and cold. I am just over the temperatures barely being 50 degrees as we are now in the month of May, which I cannot believe. It's got to warm up a little bit, though, guys. It's got to warm up. I've had enough of it. And now I'm home, and my cousins have been here for a few hours because they came over to watch the first game of the Rangers versus the Canes series. So I watched most of that with them right after we got home from the birthday lunch, which is also why my voice is slightly raspy right now, because I lost almost all of it on the Panarin goal, the fourth goal of the game, alone. So that's why my voice, if at certain times sounds a little raspy, that is why. You can thank the Rangers for that. But I'm also completely out here thanking them for that Game 1 win. Hell yes. And now, it's late. Recording very late tonight, so it's tough to fit this episode in at all today, unfortunately. I did say I was going to have a little bit of a tough time with that today last week when we last spoke because of how crammed today was going to be. It has been just as crammed as I envisioned it before. So I'm still trying to fit in the episode any way I can. But unfortunately, because of how tough it is to fit in and because of how late I am recording, hence that is why, if you happen to see my tweet this morning, then you already know. But there's also not going to be a social media segment today, just so you guys know. Because it is already nearly 8:30 at night. It is late. It's Sunday. I have work tomorrow. So I cannot be, spending into the late hours of the night working on the show as much as I would love to do that. I just really can't. So I have to cut it a little bit short tonight and not have a social media segment. So the show will be a tiny bit shorter tonight. So no social media segment. And one last reminder before we actually get into the meat and potatoes of the show. One last reminder, just so that you guys don't forget, is that next Sunday, be sure to not expect a Yapping Yankees episode. There will not be an episode next Sunday, the 12th, because it is Mother's Day, and I customarily take off every Mother's Day and Father's Day every year. And even the following Sunday is going to be tough for me on the 19th, because that happens to be my mom's birthday as well. So the Sundays of late are not lining up in my favor, to say the least, because everything is just on a Sunday. I mean, Mother's Day always is, but even today, going out for my brother's birthday lunch, and next Sunday's Mother's Day, and then the weekend after that, Sunday happens to be my mom's birthday, and then a couple of weeks after that will be Father's Day. It's a lot. It's always a lot this time of year, but I always try to fit in as many episodes on as many Sundays as I possibly can for you guys. I hope it's appreciated, because it really is not easy to do, but love to do it, because I love doing this show, love spending time with you guys, and just giving you guys an order of an extra large Yappuccino for about an hour and a half plus, usually. But, that's the deal, guys. Eventful day, eventful week coming up. As always, just a ton going on. But as of the Yankees, why don't we get into what the show's actually meant to be about, huh, Mike? How about that? Sure, guys, let's do that. Might as well yap about those Yanks. Well, game number 36 has come and gone today. And the Yankees actually just managed to complete a sweep of the Detroit Tigers upon returning home, which seems like they really needed it. And this also does mark the end, finally. Selfishly, of course, I would love to see the Yankees play every day because I can never get enough of baseball. But for the team, finally, this also marks the end of not just the Yankees and Tigers series and the Yankees finally returning home after they seemed like they needed it after that Baltimore series earlier in the week, but it also marks the end of 17 consecutive games, which I acknowledged 2 to 3 weeks ago that the Yankees were about to go through an unbelievable stretch of games, and I was concerned about the pitching, especially because they happen to be short. They have injuries out in the bullpen. They're, of course, without Garrett Cole. So I had my concerns about how the pitching was going to hold up with no days off at all for the better part of the following nearly 3 weeks straight. Fortunately, guys, the pitching actually held up very well. As a matter of fact, the bullpen is still the best in the sport right now. They've given up little to nothing at all as of the last near 30 innings. Just a couple of runs, I think, if that. And they just continue to absolutely kick ass out there, especially Clay Holmes, who looks more locked in than ever. I am so impressed with what Clay Holmes has done. I've, of course, played some jokes on him in the last few weeks, saying that, I wish we could get some 1, 2, 3 innings of him. We've been getting a lot more of that lately. And we've even been seeing him pitch more so than his typical 3 outs. He's gotten more than 3 out saves a couple of times as of the last week. But he is seldom looked more locked in. And he is nearing 20 innings pitched on the season with his ERA still at 0.
Holy crap!
As a matter of fact, I could not think of a better moment for that holy crap, Mr. Frank Barone. Thanks for that. It is now into May, and the Yankees closer, who people wanted to abandon right off the bat in the season, right away, wanted to switch someone else into being the closer, namely Mr. Ian Hamilton, who has actually struggled a great deal as of his last few outings, unfortunately. But that just goes to show you can't have too quick of a trigger finger when it comes to baseball. It is a long season, and Clay Holmes has more often than not been a successful closer as of the last couple of years. And he has never looked more locked in, almost never, than he has in his last few outings. Still, with a 0 ERA. I know earlier on, he had some elite plays made, especially in that Houston series to start the season, to help him maintain that 0 ERA. But the fact of the matter is they were still outs, whether they had to be phenomenal plays or not. And now, he looks like he is deserving of this continued 0 ERA the way he is pitching, with racking up the strikeouts and getting the ground balls he needs, even going more than having 3 out customary saves. Bro's kicking ass. And so is the vast majority of the rest of the bullpen. Caleb Ferguson, even though he still has his shaky outings, he's getting by, I guess. Luke Weaver has been amazing. He's had his rough outings here and there, but especially as the multi-inning guy, particularly of late, ERA down into the mid to high 2s now, he's getting it done, man. He looks terrific. Victor Gonzalez has been a fine lefty Wandy Peralta replacement per se out there. Dennis Santana has worried me at times, but he's overall still looked pretty good. Definitely solid out there. And again, Ron Marinaccio, I mean, if there was ever anything that I am thrilled to be completely wrong about, but I'm pretty sure everyone else under the sun would be wrong too because of how cooked he looked after last season, and even at the very start of them bringing him back this year. But since then, I think Marinaccio has shocked us all far more often than not, actually looking to be pretty good again, which, I mean, if you want to talk about rendering me speechless, then Ron Marinaccio's retransformation into looking like even a half-decent pitcher again is straight up remarkable considering the lows that he has hit since 2023. So, I am beyond thrilled with how this bullpen has looked. Beyond thrilled. And now we heard that Nick Burdi, of course, started his rehab assignment today in Double-A, so he's on his way back, which is awesome. Maybe they'll finally dump off Michael Tonkin once Nick Burdi's ready to go, and you could just have a kick-ass, even more of a kick-ass bullpen after that. Because then you'll have Dennis Santana, you'll have Nick Burdi, Ron Marinaccio, Luke Weaver, Caleb Ferguson, who's really the only one I'm mainly worried about other than Hamilton, but, you know, Hamilton's still, I think he'll be okay, but he is worrying me a little bit. Then Victor Gonzalez and Clay Holmes, I mean, come on. This bullpen has been awesome. Mostly names that we would have never envisioned them even being here. I mean, how much of a reputation have the Yankees gained of taking a bunch of people whose names that almost nobody ever knew or were on other teams and never really amounted to anything? Then you throw them in Matt Blake's lab and they come out looking like an entirely different person. It's actually amazing what that guy is able to accomplish with guys who were considered to be no-name pitchers prior, especially the hard sinker ballers. I don't know what happens, but I guess that's his specialty, retransforming these guys and helping them to reach potentials that they themselves probably did not even know to be possible. And I loved watching absolutely every second of it. But despite how epic the bullpen has looked, it doesn't end there, because the starting rotation has also continued to look absolutely phenomenal, even in the absence, once again, of Mr. Garrett Cole. Nestor Cortez continues to have his up and down starts, a little inconsistent, but I would say more often than not he has looked good at this point. Unfortunately, he had what was a stellar start today against the Tigers, mainly wasted when Ian Hamilton came in and allowed both runners on base, who were Nestor's responsibility, to come home to score, and therefore tying the game at 2 before Juan Soto would put the Yankees back in the lead unbelievably, which we will hear later on a weekly recap. But Nestor had another fantastic start, just wasted today. Unfortunately, again, because the runners were his responsibility, it did reinflate his ERA slightly. What would have been heading towards the lower threes is now back up to 3.72, and it also cost him the victory. The victory would end up going to Victor Gonzalez after the Yankees scored their 3 runs in the bottom of the 7th, thanks to Juan Soto. But otherwise, Nestor, more often than not, has looked pretty good. Just got to keep that consistency in check. Had 9 strikeouts today, which is a good sign. He's getting a lot of Ks. But hopefully he just continues to hang in there and just gets more consistent. Carlos Rodon, I mean, you take the Orioles start away, which I know it's not really fair to do that. It still counts. If you take the Orioles start away the other day, he went into that start with an ERA under 2.5. Now, unfortunately, his ERA, thanks to that start, he didn't have it against the Orioles, to say the least, has been inflated as well. But otherwise, Rodon has been every bit of the man they signed up for over a year ago, especially in the face of insurmountable pressure, especially considering how he has had to bounce back in the eyes of Yankee fans following his travesty of a 2023 and having to deal with the Yankees not having Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon having to be Garrett Cole's number 2 in his absence is expected to step up and be the number 1. And in almost every way, he has been that. I am very happy with how Carlos Rodon has started the season. I, of course, hope he bounces back following the Orioles start the other day, because, of course, we're not pleased with that. I mean, that whole series, and we'll talk about it. But Rodon otherwise has been every bit the number 1 we were all hoping and praying for every night before we Yankee fans went to sleep. Let our heads hit the pillows and our eyes shut for the night. We went to bed praying that somebody steps up, mainly the man who was signed to be Garrett's 1A. Someone steps up in Garrett's absence, and Rodon has done that. Marcus Stroman, while he definitely did not have an ideal start in Milwaukee, we spoke about it last week. Of course, he didn't have his best stuff, and then the Brewers finally got to him in the 5th inning and bombed him for 4 runs in that inning alone. Well, he did have another outing this weekend in Game 1 against the Tigers. He did bounce back, I would say, for the most part, but he did allow a lot more walks than he should have. Again, 5 1/3, 5 walks, so he averaged nearly exactly a walk per inning in his final outing, striking out 3. But it was more so a bounce back, almost made it through 6. He's very consistent with that. You can usually expect about 6 innings out of Stroman. Came up about an out or 2 short of that this time, but unfortunately, also because of the lack of offense on Friday, he did not earn a victory, but Friday did end up still having a good ending to it, obviously. Talk about that again as well. But he did manage to lower his ERA a bit from how the Milwaukee start had inflated it, so he's back under 3.5 himself. Keep chipping away to hopefully get that even lower. And then you have Clark Schmidt, and it's really a shame that he can't get past this mental block he has with the 6th inning and the 3rd time around the order, man, because if you take that away, he has been very, very good. Completely serviceable as a starter. And for his role that he is supposed to be playing, has definitely exceeded expectations, in my opinion. But, I mean, not only did he not have his best stuff last time out yesterday, can't deny that. He hasn't been great because of the fact that he can't get past the 6th inning or the 3rd time through the order. But for what was expected of him and for what I expected his next steps to be, he's definitely exceeded my expectations, especially ERA-wise. His ERA is only 3.5. He's supposed to be a 5 guy. So if you take that into consideration, I think he's done a really, really good job. But does he have more work to do? He absolutely does. He's got to get past this mental block, and we saw it again yesterday against the Tigers even. Came in as a winning team, but did not play as such against the Yankees. I guess their pitching wasn't absolutely brutal, especially the first night. They held the Yankees down. The Yankees' offense was a disgrace on Friday, as it was for the vast majority, if not the entirety, of the Orioles series earlier in the week. But Schmidt, once he gets past this, if he gets past it, hopefully he does, once he gets past this mental block with going around the order the 3rd time and getting through 6 innings, once he gets past that, he can take his true next and final steps to becoming a successful Major League starter. Because unfortunately, until you master the ability to do that, you're not really going to make it as a full, successful Major League Baseball starter. You got to be able to go 6 innings. You can't be 5 and fly every time you're out there. You just can't. It's not good enough. And it's going to burn the bullpen especially. Think of the effect it even has on them, knowing that, Clark's taking the mound today. We're probably going to have to put in a lot of innings and get a lot of outs today, more so than usual. You don't want the bullpen to have that kind of taxing on their mind. So I hope Schmidt figures that out, because otherwise he has been solid, especially through his first 4, maybe even 5 innings of work. He always goes out there and just mows everybody down. I mean, right now in the last couple of starts he's had, it's been a little weird. But the guy has had some sort of fascination with giving up leadoff homers. Between the one to Riley Green with the Tigers yesterday and the one to Gunnar Henderson in Baltimore in his start there. He's had some weird fascination with giving up leadoff homers in his last 2 outings. Hopefully he gets that under control too. But the main obstacle for him to overcome is definitely being able to get through to the order with a 3rd time around and making it through 6 innings. I think he very well could have in Baltimore. He only had 1 more out to get, so that was a good step forward. But then his start yesterday against the Tigers didn't have his best stuff. Wasn't awful, definitely not, but didn't have his best stuff for sure. Didn't even start the 6th inning. At least in a chunk of his outings, he started the 6th inning. He just hasn't been able to make it through it. But hoping he gets past that mental block soon. Because with how much a clockwork it's like, it's hard for me to believe that it's anything but mental. It's got to be mental. And finally in the rotation, the man who's gotten yet another chance at things, of course, in light of Garrett Cole going down for at least the first couple of months. He's gotten yet another chance after his return from Tommy John surgery that he had last year, Mr. Luis Heel. And what can I say? This kid is really just continuing to impress me. I am still feeling very good about the fact that coming out of spring training, he was my immediate pick to take that 5th spot in the rotation. He has not disappointed me. His strikeout numbers are still phenomenal. Gets a lot of guys looking foolish out there. He's managed to give decent length, 5 innings a lot of the time, but he's had his 6-inning outings, even more at times. And we all know Heel's biggest problem. It's his control, his command. Once he loses track of that, you start to see the walks go up. You start to see the pitch count go up. You see him giving himself a lot more work than is necessary. And that's usually when he gets himself into trouble. And sometimes he even manages to wiggle his way out of that. Depends on the day. But if he just keeps working to get that under control, man, the stuff itself, his fastball, his off-speed stuff, his breaking stuff, it's killer. It's electric. It's amongst the best I've seen of any Yankee pitcher in a long time. Especially a homegrown Yankee pitcher. So I'm just sitting here having a grand old time watching Luis Heel just go out there and do his thing as he continues his journey of having yet another chance with Garrett Cole down. And while I keep on saying that I think he'll probably be the odd man out once Cole does return, that'll be sad. Because he has done that well. Even right now, his ERA is 3.19. It's fantastic. And he has 31 innings pitched, 40 strikeouts, so he's averaging well over a strikeout an inning. And like I said, the only thing he's really got to improve on mainly is his command and his control. With the walks in particular, 20 walks in 31 innings, that ain't going to cut it. That's pretty tough. So just got to get a hold of that. And any time that his whip seems to be a little high, it's 119 right now. Well, the vast majority of that is the amount of walks he allows. But otherwise, the kid is as electric as anybody out there, truly. And he also happens to be the next starter in a couple of days when the Yankees welcome Houston into town starting on Tuesday the 7th in a couple of days. So we'll see Luis Gil go at it yet again. So the starting rotation, more often than not, I've been more than pleased with them, with the exception of maybe just a couple of times hoping for a little bit more length to help save the bullpen and not burn them out early on here. But other than that, the vast majority of the time, I am very pleased with them. I am beyond pleased with the Yankee bullpen. Again, the best in the sport. The overall team ERA is in the top 3 in the sport, neck and neck with the Seattle Mariners, that constantly flip-flop back and forth for the number 2 spot. So that's great. The Red Sox still holding the number 1 spot. Kudos to them. Didn't expect that. Or for them to be even half decent as they have been to start the season here. So that's definitely interesting. But again, overall team ERA, even the Yankees top 3, top 2 even at times. So pitching has been phenomenal. Whether or not it's going to be sustainable down the line because of the occasional short-length starts and the bullpen having to get more outs than they probably would like to certain days, I don't know how it's going to maintain going forward, but for sure, it goes without saying beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Yankees pitching, top to bottom, with the exception of a couple of guys having tough outings here and there, of course, because nobody's perfect, the Yankees pitching has been phenomenal. Cannot be said otherwise. Absolutely phenomenal. And then we get to the offense. Hence the episode title and the line that I used a great deal last week when we were talking about the offense. We definitely had plenty more of it this past week. More whiplash was definitely in store. Especially when you consider after last weekend. Although it was in a happier tone last weekend because, they just got done scoring 36 runs in a 3-game span, averaging 12 runs per game at that rate, and scoring 15 runs each last Saturday and Sunday. So, of course, I was riding high when I was saying how the offense is so inconsistent. It's just whiplash back and forth and back and forth. One day they're scoring 15 runs. The next day they could barely get 2 hits. That continued this past week. Not in a positive way this time, unfortunately, but it did continue. We had more whiplash. Monday, did not score a single run in Baltimore. Of course, they had a lot of traffic on the base. As a matter of fact, they had at least 1 runner on base every inning other than the 8th. Plenty of traffic. Just couldn't push a damn run across the board. So shut out on Monday. Tuesday, they only managed to put up 2. Fell short. 5 hits on the whole day. Wednesday, the only game that they did win in Baltimore, still only put up 2 runs. On a 2-run shot, weird 2-run shot, by Oswaldo Cabrera that got caught in the netting right upon the foul pole in right field, and only had 4 hits in the entire night. So kudos to the Yankees pitchers there for holding it down. Then Thursday, which was just an out-and-out disaster. Carlos Rodon not having it, and again, the offense being absolutely dead. Yankees not so sharp in the field again either. 6 hits on the whole afternoon. Only 2 runs. Friday, 5th day in a row. Offense absolutely dead. Fortunately, after only having 2 hits the entire night, headed into the 9th inning, the Yankees did find a strong sign of life in the 9th inning and managed to come back and walk it off. Very exciting. Before that, though, 2 hits over 8 innings the entire night. Fortunately, it just resulted in a win. And then yesterday and today, both days, they managed to put 5 runs up on the board. Even today, amidst the crap weather. So again, the offense doing a nice job scoring 10 runs in the last 2 days. So like I said, whiplash. 5 days in a row of mostly crap after what they did last weekend. And then this weekend, yesterday and today, offense didn't look quite as brutal. Juan Soto, of course, being the mainstay of consistency throughout the entire season so far, including today when he came up with that massive hit, which we'll talk about later again. But I look up and down this lineup, man. Anthony Volpe, what happened to you, brother? I understand that a market correction was to be expected. It is not possible to maintain a 380 average in baseball anymore. I understand that. But like I said last week, what bothers me more so than anything is that there seems to be a regression here due to old habits, which drives me insane. I will hit on it again because I have seen it a lot yet again as of this past week while watching him hit. Volpe's plate discipline has just gone down. He has flailed at or check swung at breaking balls way out of the strike zone, or even ones right in the strike zone that he's just not sure about clearly. Taking bad swings. Even his swing itself, that nice, leveled, two-handed approach that he had to start 2024 when he was absolutely burying every pitcher he was facing, more or less. Pitchers couldn't dream of getting this kid out in his sophomore year because of this swing that he had. And now the last few weeks, as of the market correction hitting, and him coming way back down to earth, his 2023 swing is back. Letting go with the one hand, he's got the uppercut, he's rolled over on a lot of pitches, or just hit them very weakly. And when he's reached base, he hasn't quite ran as much as he was before. So I just urge Anthony Volpe to get back to his game and get back to what he was doing to start the season. Because when he does that, you'll see the numbers go back up. Because right now he's down in the low 250s in batting average from where he was before. Even the OPS is in the low 700s. His numbers have dipped to the extreme the last few weeks. He still had his moments, like he had that big 3-run homer in Milwaukee last week on his birthday, we were talking, and things like that. He has his flashes here and there still the last few weeks, but different player than the one we saw start 2024 for sure. I don't know if it's because of the move to lead off at this point. I was a big supporter of the move to lead off, and to start with the first few days in leadoff, he was still walking a ton. He was still getting his hits. He was stealing bases like there was no tomorrow. So the beginning of the experiment was still going well, and I was in big support of it even upon hearing that the move was happening. Even before it officially happened, he played a single minute in the leadoff spot. But the last couple of weeks, I mean, if the leadoff spot is adding more pressure to him, then I don't know, maybe consider a move going forward. I'm not sure exactly. But I'm not willing to give up on it so quickly, but you can't deny at this point that Anthony Volpe has been a completely different baseball player, not for the better, the last bunch of weeks. And we'll see what happens. Maybe wait a little bit while longer to see if it's just an extended slump and he breaks out of it eventually. But if you could afford to do it, and in a couple of weeks or so, maybe even, maybe give it to the end of the month. If he's still hitting like this, I'd consider yet another move. See what happens. See if it wakes him up a little bit. See if he maybe sees some better pitches than he would see otherwise. Try anything. I mean, we'll see what happens. But Volpe, different hitter. Soto, phenomenal, obviously. Judge, he was struggling again in Baltimore, which was a bit of a surprise to me because we know that as of the last couple of years at least, Bro loves to hit in Baltimore. He and Glaber are the big Baltimore hitters. I mean, that's probably near, if not the entire reason why the O's moved the Walls back in left field, because of those two in particular, especially Glaber, how he used to hit there years ago, and then Judge just got into it there as well. But my goodness. Anyway, with Judge, definitely struggling more in Baltimore. And then this weekend, he's looked better again, the last few days. If you combine it, the last 8-9 games or so, he's hitting well over 300 again. His power has returned a decent amount. Hit another home run today on top of a double, so 2 extra base hits today upon going 2 for 3. So it's a weird case with him. He's up and he's down. Very inconsistent, and when the lows are there, it's low. His timing's just completely off. He's swinging at pitches that he has not swung at in a long time since he first came into the league. Just very unusual. Signs of regression, sort of, from him. He's raised the average above 200. That's a good thing. After today, at least his average is up to 220 now. Wow. I mean, considering what it was a few days ago, even. He was heading towards the 190s, 180s, even 170s again, about a week to a week and a half ago. So it's an improvement. His OPS is still just hovering around 800, which, I mean, for that average and some of his other numbers, it's pretty good. It shows that at least the extra base hit ability and the home run ability is there. Because, I mean, after all, the home run today was still number 7 for him. So it's not awful. He could definitely afford to have more. But the guy's just got to get on base more. He's got to get back to walking, to just getting his hits again. Get that average up and get all those numbers up. The run production when he's hitting home runs and hitting the extra base hits in timely situations that we've seen. That's not brutal still necessarily. But overall, he's just got to get back to being Aaron Judge. Timing's got to return to what it was. I liked what we saw today. I've liked what we've seen at a decent amount of points the last week to a week and a half. There are signs there for sure of the old Aaron Judge. But then he just gets into these funks at times, certain at-bats where he just swings at pitches that he has not swung at in a long time, takes pitches that should be crushed. It's weird. It's weird what's going on with Judge to start. I still think he's going to be okay. I mean, people are out there talking about how he should have his captain title removed and how dare he, and oh my God, his career is over. All it takes is a month for you guys to say that. It's all it takes. Like, I get a lot of us have PTSD over 2023, guys, but especially when it comes to Judge after everything he's done, we got to freaking chill. Listen, if he's still hitting as badly as he had for most of the season, up to the point of like June, July, you know, then I start raising some alarms a little bit, start wondering if there really is anything truly wrong with him, but it's still just May 5th. And the last week and a half or so, we've seen encouraging signs. Let's just be patient a little bit. We owe the guy some patience with what he's done in the past. At least in my opinion. Stanton's weird. Just the other day, before he had managed to get that game-tying double on Friday, I was just saying, because at the time it was getting so bad, I was saying even as one of the last remaining Stanton defenders, because I am, almost nobody out there defends Stanton anymore, and I openly do. I mean, listen back to my prediction for him when this season started. I had people calling me all kinds of things, from delusional to just straight up, I mean, words that I'm not willing to say here on this podcast, but one of his last remaining believers. But my patience, especially after last year, and with a lot of the injury difficulties that we've gone through with him over the years, even my patience had run to a very low point. It's still pretty low. Not out yet. It's not out. I'll still need a couple of more months before that happens. I'm willing to be patient. And people even call me delusional for that. But before that double, I'd even put out a tweet that I was having a tough time stomaching Giancarlo Stanton in his at-bats much longer because the pitches he was swinging at, I mean, there was a strikeout that he had to end the game in Baltimore. And it was hands down the single worst swing I have seen a Major League Baseball player make in the 17 years that I've been watching baseball. Absolutely the worst. And I was just saying, I don't know what the deal is with this guy. I mean, he hasn't really had much of any opportunities at all to play the field. So he doesn't have that to redeem when his hitting is suffering to redeem himself. And there are days where he just looks really bad. Getting blown away on fastballs, taking stuff right down the middle, swinging at just brutal pitches. But then you have your moments, because we know how streaky he is. He has his moments where he just tears the absolute cover off the baseball. And you see what he's capable of, and you say, my God, why can't this just be more consistent with this guy? It's irritating sometimes. You see the power and the ability that he has, even with the nonsensical swing mechanics that he has. Yet he's still able to muscle the ball out the way he does so often. You just say, why can't we just have some consistency with this freaking guy? Because the highs are so high. Could put any baseball team out there on his back and run a mile with them on his back without the need of a chiropractor after. But the lows are so low, like Earth's core low. And before that game-tying RBI double, which was huge, absolute laser into right field on Friday, we were at Earth core low again. I mean, he was 0 for 3 with 3 brutal-looking strikeouts again, and his batting average is probably in the 2 teens again, and we haven't seen a home run from him since he hit a home run off a position player in Milwaukee. And before that for a while, too. So the power hasn't been there as much. It's just frustrating. It's really frustrating to watch him go out there sometimes the way he plays. Again, my patience is not gone for him. But my God, can it be frustrating sometimes. Alex Verdugo, I definitely missed him for a chunk of that Orioles series. As we'll hit on the news shortly, he had to spend a couple of days on paternity leave because he was busy welcoming his daughter, I believe it was, into the world. So congratulations to Alex and the entire Verdugo family on the birth of their new child. But the Yankees were missing him for a couple of days there in Baltimore. It's good to have gotten him back. Doesn't look quite as good at the plate since his return, but of course, probably going to take a little bit to get back into the swing of things, pun intended entirely. But nonetheless, Alex is still doing, overall, a fine job. Completely fine job at the plate, especially in left field. He's played phenomenal defense. Just glad he's here, man. Oswaldo Cabrera, what can I say? As with Volpe, the market correction may have hit as well. The batting average has definitely taken a dip. The extra base hits have gone down a bit, but the home runs are still being hit every now and again. He's still getting clutch hit after clutch hit when the Yankees need him to. And he's still just doing an incredible job. Playing a decent third base. He makes some silly mistakes sometimes, but still doing an okay job down there. Definitely, more so than not. And today with Rizzo having a day off, finally able to get Rizzo a day off, especially against a tough lefty in today's game. You also had Oswaldo playing first base amidst that happening, so showing off his versatility yet again. Of course, we know he could play short or second as well. So Oswaldo, still highly valued, especially after what we spoke about last week with DJ missing even more extremely extended time now. So his importance is still just off the charts. Trevino and Austin Wells, I kind of grouped them together a little bit because obviously they're the catching tandem, but Trevino, I mean, his numbers so far still, especially considering he's not known for his offense, still terrific. His batting average is in the 280s, which in general is solid, but especially a catcher not known for offense outside of his 2022 outlier season. I cannot ask for much more out of Trevino. He's had a couple of silly things behind the plate defensively, but overall, more so than not, of course, he continues to be sharp back there, makes his really good picks, and is elite at framing still. That never changes. But still pleased with Trevino plenty. And Austin Wells even hit a home run in Baltimore the other day, of course. But his hard hits, his good contact, the last week or so, week and a half even, has finally started to yield some results, which I've been dying for. I felt so bad for the kid because for the last month or so, he's had his good amount of solid, hard hits off the bat. But then they're usually just right at somebody, or they die down at the track. Just couldn't get the results. And we're finally seeing more of that, which I'm happy to see. It's got a little bit better behind the plate, too, from what I've seen. So, catching tandem, doing fine, as of now, I would say. Obviously, the Yankees, I'm mentioning him because just finally found himself some game action since his IL stint, but the Yankees also got Birdie back today, John Birdie. So, that's good to see. He had a hit in today's game as well. The one that I've saved for last is Gleyber Torres. On the subject of players that my patience is near zero for, Mr. Gleyber Torres, unfortunately, strongly qualifies. How wrong I have been about this kid in 2024 so far, and how much he has disappointed me. Both of those are off the charts. 2023, the bright spot, not a bright spot, the bright spot in a suffering lineup. He had such a solid season, taking center stage amongst all the injuries and doing the most, being the most durable, performing the best of anybody else in that lineup. For as often as he did and as frequently as he did throughout the course of the entire season from start to finish. And now having his, appears to be very good friend Juan Soto added to the team. Judge is back in there, which he missed a huge chunk of last year with. Volpe had started the season looking phenomenal. The addition of Verdugo, you finally have a left fielder. Catching tandem doing good. Oswaldo doing what he's doing. The pitching doing what they're doing. Finally having the support around him and having finally done a fantastic job, even turning into somewhat of a leader in what was a vastly painful 2023 season. And what does Gleyber do coming out in 2024 with all of these additions and help and attributes? Bro's barely hitting 220. He only hit his first home run in Baltimore the other day. First home run in well over 50 games. Boneheaded mistakes in the field. Terrible mistakes in the field. Just lack of focus. Lack of awareness in real time. Lack of fundamentals. And then he tries to make these bizarre plays sometimes, throwing a third when it doesn't make any sense to do so. Catching a ball barehanded when sometimes you can't even catch a ball in general. Trying to turn a double play when the Yankees have had as much trouble turning double plays as they have sometimes. Making mistakes on the base paths. Trying to break up that double play the other day. Didn't know whether to slide or stand up and just ends up tumbling towards center field. It's just... I hate to talk this cruelly, but a lot of it is just self-inflicted stupidity. And I have no idea why he's doing this. I would say that it's just natural struggling. Players go through it. It's a long season. I understand all of those aspects, guys. I don't need that explained to me. I've been watching baseball a long time now, nearly 2 full decades. I know what the ebbs and flows of the season and players individually happen to be. I understand all of that. But so many of the things that Gleyber Torres is doing is pure lack of focus. And I don't understand it, especially considering the fact that, again, and I know this could be getting to him, but to this degree, considering how much effort he should be putting in, especially considering these circumstances, it being a walk year and him hitting free agency for the first time, having the opportunity finally to make a lot of money and remain a Yankee his whole life, as he has said numerous times he would like to be. Gleyber, you keep playing this way, my guy. You are not only going to ensure that you get bottom dollar in general, but you are going to play yourself right off the Yankees. I give it till about June with Gleyber as well. If he is still playing this way with basically little to no sign at all of anything changing for the better, I'm going to be honest with you, and it's really upsetting because I was expecting big things from him this year to follow up his 2023 season. I won't care if the Yankees get rid of him or let him walk or whatever the story is. Use him as a trade chip at the deadline, even if he doesn't garner a lot of return because his value will have vastly decreased because of his first half by that point if he doesn't improve. I won't mind. I really won't. Especially if DJ's ready to go at some point. I know how certain people feel about DJ and his decline, but at least put him back at third base. And if you let Gleyber happen to walk at the end of the year, or if he gets traded at the deadline and it's that soon, you're like, oh my God, who's going to play second base? Just put Oswaldo at second base. Or you can keep Oswaldo at third and put DJ back at second base. It's up to you. But either one's okay if Gleyber Torres is to go. And he will go if he continues to play at this clip, guys, because it's unacceptable. Sorry, it's unacceptable. Looks like an absolute fool the vast majority of the time at the plate. Yeah, he gets hits here and there. You're a Major League Baseball player. Here and there, you got to get hits. Otherwise, what are you doing here? I expect more out of Gleyber Torres than just a hit every 3 days. Sorry. I expect more than that, especially after last year. I've had enough of blaming it on silly rookie crap because I don't view it as that anymore. Gleyber Torres has been in the league now since 2018. This is his 7th season in the major leagues. He's not a baby anymore. He's been around a while. It's time to pay attention. Like, bro, you're hitting free agency this year. Don't you want, like, the best of the best for yourself? Don't you want to stay a Yankee? Like, even the other day, when he tried to make that barehanded play, and he makes the mistakes that he does, that just prove he's just not paying attention. His head's not in the game. Even Aaron Boone, who always stands up for his guys, always, had a bit of a harsh quote with it, saying that play basically has to be made. I mean, here's the quote word for word. He said he's got to secure the ball. It's the big leagues. You've got to make that play, and he didn't make the play. I don't know if he was trying to do too much. He's made that play a lot. He didn't in that spot. Well, I'll answer the question for you, Boone. He's just not paying attention. You can't be trying all these complex things with barehand plays and all these things that truly good defenders do, and you don't even have the fundamentals down. You're not paying attention. Your head's not in the game. That's Glaber's problem. The man continues to be his own worst enemy, still making rookie mistakes in his 7th big league season. And my patience for the guy, unfortunately, is running out. And running out fast. Some people are telling me that I'm even being too generous with this. The fact that I'm waiting till June. But I'll give Glaber a few more weeks. If he is still showing the same crap that he has shown in the first week of June, I'll be okay with whatever happens with him at that point. When it comes to him not being brought back or even possibly being used in a trade at the deadline, however he may be, I'll be fine with it. I need Bro to show me something. I really do. I am so disappointed in him. It's just not even funny. Like at the plate, he showed a couple of bright spots in Milwaukee, but other than that, we've seen little to nothing. Even the home run he hit in Baltimore, the first home run, I couldn't even be happy about that. Because other big moments, he had the error earlier on in that game on Thursday. Didn't look good otherwise. And then, of course, when nobody's on base, the Yankees are down 7-1. He hits a pointless solo shot. It was hard for me to even care that it was his first home run in 53 games or some odd like that. And some people were saying, it could increase his confidence. Yeah, that could be a positive, but I didn't see that happening with Glaber. And we've seen him mainly just do nothing with it since that home run anyway. He's just lost, and I don't know why. Like, don't you want to make as much money as you could possibly make once this season is over? Don't you want to stay on this team? Why are you doing the boneheaded things that you're doing? Why? You struggle at the plate here and there. That's part of the game. But the mistakes he's making, even Aaron Boone, who never, ever says anything bad about his players, could not even mince words after Thursday. It's gotten to such a point where it just can't happen anymore. Otherwise, he's going to play himself right off this damn team. Gotta show me something, man. You have to. So Glaber is probably, I hate to make it seem like he's the next one to pick on, per se. But it's valid, guys. He's been brutal. Usually when one side of the game isn't working out, another side could pick it up and redeem it, like I said with Stanton briefly earlier, saying that, he's not really even getting many or any reps in the field to make up for when his bat isn't doing anything. Because he's DHing 99.9% of the time. Well, Glaber does have that chance, and he's still doing terrible on the other side. He's not running the bases right, he's not playing defense right, he's not hitting right, he's not doing anything right to redeem anything. That can't go unanswered forever. Come on, bro. I don't understand why he would even allow himself to make these boneheaded mistakes that he makes, considering everything that's on the line. I just don't get it. After today, 222 average, 1 home run, 7 RBIs. OPS down to 567. Even the other stats you look at, I'm looking at his on-base percentage, under 300, 293. Slugging 274, of course, is 1 home run and minimal extra base hits. So I don't know, man. I'll keep my eyes on him like everybody else does, but the patience for Glaber is very close to 0. Giving him till June. June is it, man. And if he happens to go after that, it's fine. It's whatever at that point. If he happens to improve just at that point when my patience happens to hit 0 and turns things completely around, then great. I'm not rooting for the guy to do bad. I'm just saying based off of what we've seen and my disappointment in him, I'm fine with whatever happens beyond June. If he's still playing this way when it comes to him potentially not being here anymore, I'm okay with it. So we'll see what happens. But basically that's it, guys. Pretty much 50 minutes into the show that's dissected the entire damn team. So that's the outlook of the whole team right now, guys. Pretty much my opinions on everybody and how things have been going in general. But there is some news we got to get to when it comes to injuries, roster, some updates all around. So what say we get to it? Yankees news. Starting from Monday. Obviously, that day was when the Yankees had placed Alex Verdugo on the paternity list. So the Yankees were without him for a couple of days, and they had recalled Carlos Narvaez, basically the third-string catcher from AAA, to take a spot on the roster temporarily. And, of course, they'd do the reverse when Verdugo returned on Thursday. Verdugo got re-added back to the roster. Narvaez back down to AAA. On Tuesday, the 30th, I'm not even sure how many of you remember this pickup, but remember the minor Yankees and Pirates trade maybe a little over a month ago, on March 29th, a little over a month, when the Pirates traded over the not so great, to say the least, JT Brubaker in exchange for a player to be named later. Well, if anybody cares, the player had been finally named on Tuesday. It was infield prospect Kiner Delgado, in case that devastating cliffhanger from over a month ago was keeping anybody up at night. Just grabbing at you as you were trying to fall asleep. Who the hell is that player to be named later? Well, it is Kiner Delgado. So that is it. And I did see some people being concerned about it for some reason on social media when it was announced. Obviously, the infield in general is pretty crowded down in the minors for the Yankees and in the overall organization, period, as we know, even in the big leagues. So I'm not surprised to hear this. Hope Delgado does well in Pittsburgh's system, of course, but I really don't think it's a big deal at all. And last but certainly not least, yesterday, a couple of big pieces of news. Gerrit Cole was throwing off a mound as of yesterday, continuing his throwing program. Yankees have nothing but good things to say about it. Continued optimism as he continues to work his way back, which I cannot be happier about. I mean, I just want to keep on hearing, even if it's sooner rather than later. And of course, if the Yankees continue to have as good of a record as they have, I wouldn't rush Gerrit back any sooner than you have to. There's no reason to, as long as the team is doing what they're doing. I mean, if he's ready to go, then definitely, bring him back, because you don't want to go any longer without Gerrit Cole. I miss the guy to death. We all miss him to death. But I'm just saying, don't unnecessarily rush him back as long as the team happens to still be doing what they're doing, which is obviously a very good thing. Shouldn't rush him back either way, but it makes it even easier to not rush him back when the team is doing good. So, Gerrit's continuing his throwing program. All good there. Good things. John Birdie obviously had returned off the injured list, like I'd mentioned earlier in the show yesterday. And in turn, they had DFA'd Taylor Trammell. So he was designated for assignment. And he, like many others, will probably just end up being outrighted back to the AAA roster and being off of the 40-man. Some people were saying, why did they DFA him instead of somebody else? Well, the fact of the matter is that the Yankees actually were in need of a bit of infield depth, and they already have plenty of options for the outfield, so it makes sense as to why Taylor was the one to be DFA'd. I was confused as to why he was the one called up anyway when he was, as opposed to another infield depth piece. Getting another outfield depth piece was a little puzzling. So, he's been DFA'd, and we'll see if anybody picks him up, or if he gets outrighted to AAA and remains in the Yankee organization. Some other general injury news throughout the roster. I know we'd gone over a couple of roster moves here and John Birdie returning and whatnot, so that's good. Returning players always welcome news. But just as far as the rest of the injured list, some updates a week later from when we had spoken last Sunday, and then we'll move on to weekly recap and wrap up the show, since there's no social media segment today. But DJ LeMahieu was apparently hitting again. Rehab assignment is nowhere close according to the Yankees, though. But Aaron Boone did say that he was hitting a little bit yesterday, but they're pretty positive that he is not that close to a rehab assignment. So after his setback, obviously DJ still just does not really seem much of anywhere close. They're just saying possibly at some point in the month of May. If it is in the month of May by chance, and I imagine it won't be until way later in the month. Otherwise, I had already mentioned this earlier on in the show briefly, but Nick Birdie had initiated his rehab assignment today, pitching 1 inning in Double-A, and he's apparently only expected to need about 1 or 2 more rehab outings before he's able to return to the Yankee bullpen. So he could be back sooner rather than later, Nick Birdie, which is very nice. Nice, solid right-handed arm to re-add to the already amazing Yankees bullpen. As far as Tommy Kahnle, he is actually nearing a rehab assignment, which is welcome news because we've heard of his really, really slow ramp-up ever since really being behind everybody else, dating back to spring training, the earlier parts of it, as a matter of fact. But they're saying he's really only expected to need about 1 or 2 more live batting practice sessions before pitching in actual minor league games and taking legitimate steps back to rejoining the Yankee bullpen. And Boone only said this a couple of days ago, apparently. But he had tossed a 15-pitch simulated inning on April 27th in Tampa, Florida. We might have hit on that last week already. But He keeps on saying that he's excited to rejoin, feeling pretty good since his latest setback a few weeks ago. It seems like he's closer than ever to rejoining the team finally, so hopefully he continues on that path. Peraza basically just continues to remain the same, still deep into his throwing program. He's hitting, he's doing his thing. But he still seems to be at least a couple of weeks away from rehab games himself, so Peraza's still going to be out for a bit longer, it sounds like. Jason Dominguez still pretty much the same thing. As we said last week, still just, on the road back. And the same goes for Lou Trevino, Scott Efros, a couple of more solid Yankee bullpen arms, still just eyeing a summer return. That's really that. Those updates aren't really being given as frequently as others because it's just at least maybe a month or two more away. And the news on them is just basically that they continue to be on a good track to return hopefully at some point in the summer. So a couple of more arms to re-add to the bullpen. But that's basically it as far as all of your roster and injury updates, guys. So why don't we hop right in that Yapping Yankees time machine and talk about this whiplash-filled, as I said earlier, past week of action. Let's go. We begin with last Monday. 6 days ago, the Yankees obviously had started a big 4-game set in Baltimore against the Orioles. And now, of course, they were coming off of the games that they did against Milwaukee, and they looked terrific over there, all with the exception of the end of Friday night's game. But otherwise, literally every other part of the series was just a blast, honestly. So, riding high into Baltimore, Judge looking good, even Glaber having had a couple of good games, which was even a shock to me. And taking all of these things into Baltimore, typically where those two in particular also happen to hit very well, usually was not the case this time, of course, but just a lot of really good feelings and a lot of really high expectations after how they performed in Milwaukee, how they were headed into Baltimore to round off their 7-game road trip. It unfortunately did not go well at all. But, like I spoke about earlier on in the show when I gave a general overview of this past week, particularly in Baltimore, Monday actually was just more so frustrating because the Yankees weren't able to push across any of the base runners, frequent base runners that they had throughout the entire game. And then the rest of the series was just, it was really just frustrating baseball to watch. Monday not as, it was frustrating in the sense that they had a bunch of base runners, they weren't able to get them in. Again, at least one base runner every inning except for the 8th, and they just could not get a single run across. 7 hits, 3 walks, plenty of traffic on the bases. And all of that after 30 runs the prior 2 days combined in Milwaukee. Big fat donut to start the Baltimore series. 5th shutout of the year at that point, by the way. And when the series had come to a close, the Yankees had only put up a combined 6 runs in the entire series, which spanned 36 innings. Of course, 4 9-inning games, obviously. 36 innings. 6 runs scored in all 36 of those innings. So the offense just did not get it done. Fortunately, they didn't get shut out since Monday in that series or period, even with the Tigers series this weekend. But by the end of the series, it ended up being a complete reversal of what we saw in Milwaukee as far as offense and overall competitiveness outside of the pitching, of course. Because, again, the pitching has been terrific and was, even in the Baltimore series, with the exception of Rodon on the final day, as we had spoken about. But otherwise, pitching was phenomenal, kept them in every single game, Monday through Wednesday. And even the bullpen allowed minimal damage, if any, after Rodon fell apart a little bit after a little while in Thursday's outing. But the offense just did not show up. And until yesterday, they hadn't shown up the entire week. Even in the first game against the Tigers, all the way up until the bottom of the 9th inning when they excitedly walked off. And also there was more umpire drama, as we seem to have every single week, basically every single day, almost, at one point or another in the game, whether it be the home team or the road team doing it, complaining to the umpire, most of the time rightfully so. But had more drama yesterday as well, with Judge being ejected for the first time in his career. And yes, before we even talk about it, Judge was actually in the wrong because the ball was a strike. Yes, it was, but the call is not the issue. But even upon admitting that the pitch was a strike, you also have to admit that the call was also borderline. It was right on the line for the strike zone, even with the box that's shown digitally on the television. Everywhere it showed that it was right on the border. And of course, if it even clips it a little bit, it's a strike. That's what proves that it was, in fact, a strike. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to at least question it. And I do know that Judge said it was BS, and he appeared as if he said it was BS throughout most of the game and whatnot. And Ryan Blakeney, the home plate umpire of yesterday's game, did happen to make an unbelievable amount of horrible calls yesterday, especially against the Tigers in the later part of the game. I do have to say that. Point was, he was having a very bad day yesterday, so Judge wasn't even wrong in that comment. And usually, there's only a quick hook if the umpire feels threatened physically or otherwise, whatever. I mean, I guess with Judge's size, you could feel that way regardless. But Judge, someone who is, and probably always will be respectful in general, but even towards umpires who don't really deserve the respect with how they do nowadays, and only seem to get worse with the passing of literally every single year. But the guy's always had a great reputation throughout all of baseball, even with the officials. And with him having been saying all of this on his way back to the dugout, and he had been walking back already when he was already done, and then the ejection happened, gotta tell you, really quick hook, especially when considering it's Aaron Judge. Also at home at Yankee Stadium, many people are there, at least partially, to see Aaron Judge. Fortunately, the one pro of this whole situation was that Aaron Judge did not have another chance to hit throughout the rest of the game since it was late in the game already, and his lineup spot did not turn over again for the remainder of the game. So it didn't have any long-lasting potential impact on the offense in the game afterwards. So that's a positive. So all is good when it comes to that. But we again have to talk about the sensitivity and the irrational ego of these umpires, which it seems to be a discussion every week, and I wish we could stop because it's like beating a dead horse at this point. But there's just a new instance every 2 seconds. Not even just in Yankee games, guys. It happens all over the league. These guys are out of control, and they have this mentality and this approach to their job that they should always be treated with respect, that they're always right. Even Rizzo dug them about that in his post-game interview and talking about that he thought it was extra sensitive too. He made it very clear from his words from the dugout too, if you're good at reading lips. He even said, well, they're probably going to say they're right because they're always right. They take this insufferable approach to their job and how they act on the field, almost as if they are seeking out conflict instead of diffusing it, like they're supposed to do. The quick hooks, the sensitivity, the arrogance, the ego, they all need to be toned the hell down immediately. Because if all it takes is saying that was BS and that the call's been BS throughout the game, if that's all it takes while walking back to the dugout to eject the Yankee captain, we got some problems with the officiating in this sport. We got a problem. Can't even question anything anymore. You get that bent out of shape just because someone said that's BS? Really? Again, it's not even really so much about the call being wrong or right, because again, it was the right one. If even I'm admitting that, you know I'm not biased here or subjective. It was the right call. I'm seldom even ever able to admit that, considering how wrong umpires often are nowadays, especially. But to have such a quick hook, and to get in the face of some of the players even, like some of these guys do, especially amidst when they're already having a brutal day. I don't understand. I mean, maybe it's the fact that these guys are unionized and they know they can't really even be penalized or punished. Maybe that just has them have some sort of an ego and make them feel like they can do whatever the hell they want. Maybe we got to look into changing that if that's the case. Because this is getting out of control. Screw getting. It is out of control. That was a quick hook. And the sensitivity and the ego, all of it, all of the umpire shows, the shenanigans, they need to be taken down dramatically. I've had enough of the umpires. I could barely even stand the sights of any of them anymore. It's gotten to such a point where the mere sight of them, let alone how the vast majority of them perform their jobs, air quotes around perform, it automatically just has me sick to my stomach. Sometimes before the game even starts. It's got to stop, man. I mean, just the fact that yesterday was Judge's first career ejection ever, that should tell you something right off the bat. First time a Yankee captain's even been ejected since Don Mattingly in the early to mid-90s. Come on. So those are your big takeaways, general overview. When it comes to specific details, obviously starting on Monday, again, the Yankees did not score a single run despite all of their traffic on the bases. And again, shame, because Clark Schmidt had started the game, 5 2/3, damn near made it through 6, if not for just getting one more out. Only gave up 3 hits, 1 run on that leadoff solo shot from Gunnar Henderson that I had mentioned before. Only walked 3 and struck out 5. Had himself a pretty nice outing. He really did. It was a nice outing, especially after that solo shot. He allowed really not much at all. Only 3 walks and 2 more hits after that in damn near 6 innings pitched. Definitely a quality outing for sure. So I was happy with that. And otherwise, other than that Gunnar Henderson solo shot, you had the error in the bottom of the 8th inning by Anthony Volpe. Another error by him on a routine grounder. I don't know, he's had that happen to him a couple of times this year early on. It's weird. But that allowed another run to score for the Orioles, and the Yankees' dead offense just made it seem insurmountable, and it was. The Yankees would end up falling 2-0 in that one. Tuesday the 30th, the Yankee offense actually did manage to put up a couple of runs, believe it or not, when it came to this series. On a solo shot in the top of the 3rd by Austin Wells. This was the home run I mentioned earlier, his first of the year. Very nice to see him finally get some results with that. And the only other run they managed to put up was on a Juan Soto absolute tank job to Utah Street in the top of the 6th off of Dean Kramer. His 8th home run of the year, and even gave him a stare down with the bat flip, which I thought was slightly unnecessary, down by 3 runs with the rest of the offense being a collection of walking corpses. But it is what it is. Whatever. Definitely would have been cooler if it was a game-tying or go-ahead home run, especially considering the circumstances. 2 first-place teams going head-to-head with each other. Big game in Baltimore. Big home run being hit by really the main consistent Yankee hitter. I would have understood it more in that circumstance. Especially even the fact that he continued to play it up in the post-game interviews. But it's a little cringe when it comes to the fact that the Yankees still lost the game. And, I mean, despite how good Juan Soto is doing, I don't want to go after him at all. He's been absolutely fantastic. I love the guy more than almost anybody in the entire sport. We know this. Not going after him. Just saying timing was a little off for that. That's all. But those are the only 2 runs they managed to put up, even off of Dean Kramer, who otherwise has really had a rough start to the year. Just not even really a quality arm out of that Orioles rotation. Neither really was Grayson Rodriguez too much the night prior, but the Yankee offense couldn't do anything off either one. Nestor Cortez has started this game. He went 6 innings, allowing 4 runs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, and 8 hits. So the final line, not looking all too great, but between a couple of things that happened while he was pitching and the fact of how dead the offense was, really could have had his back more. I don't really blame Nestor too much, especially because in the 2nd inning he allowed his run primarily. Well, might have still scored anyway, ultimately, even if Gleyber got the out at first. But it was a ground ball to second with a runner on second and nobody out. And Gleyber Torres fields the ball and decides that it's a good idea to try to get the runner out at third base, which is just an objectively terrible decision yet again in real time by Gleyber in the field. It obviously works out terribly, hits the runner, trickles down the third base line, and ends up scoring the run anyway. So, Not really totally on Nestor if Glaber just gets the out at first. Again, maybe the run still does score later on, but at least you get the sure out at first. But Glaber did not do that because, again, he has no real-time awareness this year at all. And we've seen this many times in the past too, but especially to start this year. And the rest of the 3 runs were all given up in the 4th inning. So it's 4-1 by that point, and outside of Juan Soto's solo shot, the offense just had nothing in it. 5 hits the entire night. Just another embarrassing effort by them. Fortunately, Wednesday, even though they also managed to just score 2 runs on an Oswaldo 2-run shot right down the line that very strangely landed in the netting, right above that high wall in right field, right upon that right field foul pole. Really odd home run there. Even Michael Kay and the Yes crew just couldn't get over how odd it was. And those were the only 2 runs the Yankees managed to score in the 5th inning, on top of the total 4 hits they had the entire night. But fortunately, because of how locked down Heel and the bullpen were, that was all they needed. And they did manage to get the win despite the continued lack of offense and Oswaldo being the entire reason they scored at all. Again, Luis Heel 6 1/3, so again giving some decent length. Only 2 hits allowed the whole night, 1 walk, so he had his command under control, and 5 strikeouts. No runs, of course, shutout. And Caleb Ferguson managed to finish the 7th for him. Ian Hamilton had gotten 1 out. He allowed a walk, though, so he was taken out. And Clay Holmes got himself a 5-out save for his 10th save of the year. Again, Clay Holmes, especially this past week, has continued to look just absolutely stellar. Hasn't thrown really that much in the last week and a half or so. I mean, after the whole controversy in Milwaukee with him not coming out for that 2nd inning of work, of course. I mean, prior to that, he had only had a 9 or 10 pitch outing that Tuesday, almost 2 weeks ago. And then he had that outing in Milwaukee. And then he had this outing in Baltimore. And then this weekend, just yesterday, getting a 4-out save. So again, another instance of him getting more than just 3 outs. Today, he didn't even have the opportunity to come in, of course, because the game was rained out in the bottom of the 8th inning. Probably would have seen him again in the top of the 9th, maybe. But it never got a chance to happen. So another day of rest for Clay Holmes. And this could be a part of the reason, but could be because Clay Holmes is just so well rested as of the last couple of weeks. And you can tell with the way he's throwing. He looks very well rested. His arm looks just about as good as it could possibly look. It's just awesome to see that. So, again, Yankees pitching back on Wednesday, Holmes included, just locked down. And they were able to hold down the 2-0 lead and get the victory. Praying for a split on Thursday because, again, the Yankees, not that it matters too much because it was just April going into May. There's so much of the season left to go. But I especially would have liked just for at least a split at this point because the Yankees had gone into this series a game over Baltimore in the division. Again, not the division is do or die at this point. It's still very early. But just for the sake of being in first place still, considering the Yankees stayed in first place for the vast majority, basically the entirety of April more or less, just would have been nice to stay there and still just be over Baltimore, have the advantage. And they started the series being 1 game better than them, and a split would have kept that exactly the same, obviously. So it would have been nice, but Thursday had other ideas, and it just ended in what was already a low-scoring series overall between the 2 teams. I got to tell you, the Orioles did not impress me as much as I thought they would. The Yankee offense just performed really lousy. Again, at least partial credit to their pitching. I don't want to short sell them at all. But outside of Thursday, where the Yankees shot themselves in the foot a lot, and of course Rodon just didn't have it, again, credit to the Orioles offense, I suppose. It was really the only game that really looked terrific. Outside of Thursday, I did not really see too much that impressed me from the Orioles. It was a very well-fought series despite the Yankees coming out of it down 3 games out of 4. But although the end of the series was a bit of a punch in the face, even as the Yankees described it, and it was, overall, it wasn't a major discrepancy. The scoring was kept close. The Yankee pitching definitely, for the most part, again, outside of Rodon, completely kept the Orioles under control, more often than not. So I think these teams are more evenly matched than we may think. And again, remember, even in this series, Aaron Judge did little. Garrett Cole's still not around. So there are factors here that still show that the Yankees could possibly even be better than them, even more so down the line. Because again, the discrepancy was not major. But Thursday, unfortunately, did not finish to my desire, or any of our desires, of course. 4 innings for Rodon, who started the game. 8 hits, 7 runs, 6 of them earned. He didn't walk anybody, and he did strike out 6. So those numbers were good, but he had some reoccurring trouble that we've seen from him at certain points early to start the season, guys. He had trouble keeping the ball in the park. Gave up a solo shot to Ryan Mountcastle. Gave up a bomb to Jorge Mateo. His first home run of the year, and not a power hitter. Just crushed it to left center field over that big wall, which is now moved way back. Crushed it off Rodon. I was like, what the hell? Jorge Mateo, of all people. And then even to Ryan McKenna. Just weird people to be giving up home runs to, with the exception of Mountcastle. And then Jordan Westberg had hit a 2-run triple after Ryan Mountcastle had an RBI single. Jorge Mateo got a sac fly, so he drove in another run. There was that error with Glaber that we spoke about earlier on in the show that didn't help anything. It was the reason why one of the runs off of Rodon was not earned. It was a mess. Marinaccio fortunately came in 2 shutout innings of his own, followed by Tonkin as well. Now, in a deficit, that's when Tonkin should get some innings, and he did here, so that's really when it should happen. As he has since that Milwaukee outing. Should really just be mop-up duty for now. That's what he was here. But Marinaccio, again, looked very good. And Rodon just kept it under control. Escaped bases loaded, nobody out at one point early in the game. But then it just started to slowly get worse. Third, and in the fourth, into the fifth. Glaber's error did not help. And it just got worse and worse. And the Yankee offense only put up 2 runs. One of them being a garbage-time Glaber-Torres homer, his first one in, again, 53 games. And in the top of the third, the Yankees had actually gotten on the board first, which is the shame of it. RBI single by Rizzo. Got them going first. And it just went south after that. Rodon gave the run right back on that solo shot to Mountcastle, and it just went from there, guys. So, unfortunately, the Yankees left having lost 3 out of 4. Bad series. Not a major discrepancy, again, between the two, especially with the exception of Thursday, but they could definitely do better against them in the future. Next time they meet, we'll see what happens. And there's plenty of season left to go as far as the division, of course, but not a good way to end that series. They definitely just seemed like they just had to have something change up. Maybe it's the wear and tear of all the games in a row. Could be a number of different things, but I was just like, get the boys home. Just get them back here. So when Friday comes around, and at first I was like, well, bring them home did nothing, because until that 9th inning, they had 2 hits the whole night. 2 hits. And the Tigers had only scored 1 run in the top of the 6th when Stroman walked in a run with the bases loaded. And then fortunately, after Stroman was taken out of the game again, Hamilton was able to escape trouble, and the Yankee bullpen just continued to do their thing all the way through to the end, as they have done so often in this stretch. Throughout the vast majority of the season, really. And then finally, in the 9th inning, Judge starts off the inning with a ground ball up the middle, base hit. Verdugo lays down a bunt and happens to turn it into a hit. And then, as I had also mentioned earlier, finally breaking through with something, especially after looking brutal on this particular night again, Giancarlo Stanton with an absolute laser down the right field line for a game-tying RBI double, and then Rizzo comes up with the infield in, trickles a ground ball towards right center field, gets past second base, and the Yankees walk it off, getting an unprecedented rally in the 9th inning based off of how they looked throughout the rest of the game. So that was good. They looked terrible otherwise, but in the 9th inning, they managed to have that rally in their bones, got the job done, got the win to start this homestand. Great way to start it, especially after the way they ended in Baltimore. Stroman had himself a nice outing except for the very end. Bullpen did their thing. Offense finally remembered that they do have a pulse at the very end and utilized said pulse to win the game. About damn time. Then Saturday came around, May 4th, Star Wars Day. And I have to say, even as a Star Wars fan, I'm about as diehard a fan and know about as much as just about anybody would in Star Wars. Love it as much as the next person. Complete nerd. Even some may say a loser. But I love Star Wars just about as much as anybody. That's the point I'm trying to make. Even I will admit that Star Wars Day is overdone and even at times kind of cringe. It just is. Between the characters constantly walking around, people using the pun, "May the 4th be with you," I'm sorry, I think it's cringe. Sorry. Even someone like me, who loves Star Wars as much as I do and adores it, and I don't know what I would do without it, even through the times of pain where it deserves a lot of criticism, will admit that Star Wars Day at times can be very cringe. That's when you know. But regardless, they came out on Star Wars Day, and thankfully, on top of all the Star Wars I had to watch, gave me something to be very happy about. Clark Schmidt again got the start. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, did not have his best stuff, made himself work more so than he had to. Didn't walk anybody, and he did strike out 7 guys, so the strikeouts were up, but the hits allowed, still allowed 3 runs, and the Yankees even gave him a 5-1 lead at one point, immediately gave 2 runs of those back, did not go 6 innings again. Just a couple of things that could have been better, did not have his best, but he wasn't bad either, of course. Caleb Ferguson came in, didn't look great. Allowed the Tigers to get a little bit of a rally going. Fortunately, Weaver came in and saved him and then pitched another 2 innings on top of that, 2 1/3, shutout, striking out 4, looking fantastic. Clay Holmes, another 4-out save, just chewing up and spitting out just about any hitter he faces nowadays, and getting his 11th save of the year. But the Yankee offense, fortunately, after Clark allowed yet another leadoff home run, like I had mentioned earlier on in the show as well, got right to work. Giancarlo Stanton, again, after his partial heroics the night before, game-tying RBI single right away in the bottom of the first. Another absolute piss missile in order to get this done. When he squares it up, man, look out, because someone can be killed. Bottom of the third, Judge, actually, with a very nice piece of hitting, in on the hands, still managed to fight one off and hit a double into left field. Driving home the second run of the game for the Yankees, driving Volpe home, made it 2-1. Anthony Rizzo, after his walk-off the night prior as well, with a 3-run atom bomb to right center field off the side of the second deck, heading towards the Judge's chambers even. Just an absolute bomb for Rizzo, who continues to look much improved as of the last week to a week and a half, which is very welcomed because for a while to start there, another guy who was just not looking good. Then the Tigers, of course, had scored their 2 runs in the top of the fourth, but then nothing for the rest of the game on either side. Yankees hold on for the 5-3 victory. And today's adventurous game, last but certainly not least, with the rain and all, really crappy day outside, the Yankees still managed to, again, get the job done. Starting this game was Mr. Nestor Cortez. Really had himself a very nice outing until the 7th inning when he allowed a couple of base runners that, unfortunately, thanks to Ian Hamilton, would end up scoring and be charged to Nestor, which would also cost him the victory, as I said earlier on. But otherwise, 6 1/3, and if not for those runs that Ian Hamilton allowed on his behalf, then he wouldn't have allowed any runs. Only 1 walk, 3 hits, and 9 strikeouts. So Nestor looked really good today. He really did, especially leading up to those 2 base runners in the 7th inning that he allowed before that. Nearly completely spotless, having only allowed 1 hit through 6. So a phenomenal start for Nestor. Then after Ian Hamilton, like I said, Victor Gonzalez and Dennis Santana came in and did their thing. Gonzalez was able to get the final out of the 7th. Dennis Santana pitched the 8th, and as of course we know later on in the game, in the 8th inning, the timing was weird, especially considering it was raining much worse at earlier parts of the game. They had put the tarp on the field, and they would end up calling the game, rightfully so, because conditions were terrible. The grounds crew, which at Yankee Stadium they could not get enough credit, they're phenomenal, and they proved it yet again today. Those poor guys had to go out there and redo the infield about 45 times. Just crazy. Horrible weather. Slippery, dangerous conditions for the players, and they waited all the way until the 8th when it wasn't even raining as bad as it was earlier on in certain parts of the game to put the tarp out and then ultimately call the game, finally. But an official game either way, as long as it makes it past 5, that's what's important. So, the Yankee offense, though, early on, obviously did get to work right away, all the while with Nestor again pitching phenomenally. Again, as I had mentioned earlier on in the show, Aaron Judge with his 7th home run of the year in the bottom of the first. Nice shot to right center field. Put the Yankees up 1-0. Oswaldo Cabrera with an RBI ground rule double driving Glaber home. Made it 2-0 in the bottom of the second. Then, of course, the 7th inning was when the Tigers managed to retie the game, as I had mentioned before. And amidst all of this, with the rain coming down the way it was, adding even more chaos to this game that, in my opinion, should have probably just been called back in like the 5th or the 6th, based off of the conditions. I was even saying that at the time. It wasn't just out of fear of like the Tigers tying, or then when they did retie the game, ultimately saying that, but just the conditions were bad. I know the Tigers didn't have a day off tomorrow, and the Yankees, even though they had off tomorrow, just nothing seemed to line up. But I find it hard to believe that they couldn't just postpone for later in the season with like 5 months still left to go. When it comes to players' safety and how objectively awful all the conditions were all afternoon nearly, I would just think that that would be of higher importance. Plus, especially when the 5th inning's done, it's officially a game at that point, so just like call it. And then the choice of timing to do it in the 8th inning when it was no longer quite as bad as it was prior, but worked out the way it did. And, well, before the game was called, thankfully, when the game was tied, like I had mentioned earlier on in the show as well, Juan Soto, and of course the audio is in courtesy of the S Network, decided to do this.
And he does, rips it to right field. One man scores. Trevino scores. They're waiting home Volpe. He scores. It's a bases clearing double for Juan Soto. And the Yankees lead 5-2.
Despite that slightly diminished crowd and all the crappy conditions outside, listen to that stadium still, man. The Bronx faithful. You can't beat it, man. So Soto's bases clearing double with the bases loaded fortunately put the Yankees up 5-2, and then obviously when Dennis Santana, after he had finished the 8th inning, that's when the rain delay started, and the game was ultimately called. So the Yankees finishing off a sweep of the Tigers after the down series in Baltimore. The offense showing a bit more spirit the last couple of days again, thank God. But with the whiplash that we have experienced, let us not be surprised if they happen to go back down for a little while more, then they come back. The inconsistency with the offense, as I've mentioned for weeks now, has just been staggering. And with how bad they look some days, sometimes I find myself wondering how in the hell are they like 10 games over 500? If not for Juan Soto, they'd probably be significantly worse. That's objectively the truth, but hey, that's why the Yankees got him. You expect him to have this kind of an impact. You hope he does, and he has. So hell, it's great. It's happening the way it's supposed to. And then some. When it comes to what's going on for the rest of the week, obviously, as I'd mentioned before, the Yankees' absurd 17-day stretch of no days off is officially done. They could reset the bullpen. Everyone gets a nice refresher. Finally, for them. Happy for them. Screw you, MLB. So tomorrow's an off day on Monday the 6th. Tuesday, I think I alluded to this earlier as well, the Yankees will be welcoming the Astros into town in a hell of a matchup to start the series. Luis Gil, like I had mentioned earlier, against Justin Verlander. So that'll be nice. The Yankees did not see Verlander when they started the season in Houston because, of course, he was injured. Wednesday, May 8th, and Tuesday, by the way, 7:05 start. 7:05 p.m. start on Wednesday as well, Wednesday the 8th. And Carlos Rodon will be on the mound for the Yankees. Hopefully we see a nice bounce back from the Orioles start. Thursday, very strange. Thursday the 9th will be a 5:05 p.m. start. 5:05 p.m. Eastern. Very weird there. In the Bronx again, of course, finishing off the 3-game set between the Yankees and the Astros, Marcus Stroman will be taking the hill to finish off the 3-game set. Then next weekend, the Yankees will be hitting the road again. Friday, May 10th. Going to Tampa, seeing the Rays in the Trop for the first time this year. No pitching matchups announced, obviously, as of yet. But again, some more odd start times for next weekend. On Saturday the 10th, it's a 6:50 p.m. Eastern start. I don't know why they just don't do 7:05 or 7:10. It's just weird, 6:50. Major League Baseball's been weird with the scheduling and the timing the last couple of years, man. It's weird. Saturday will be 4:10 p.m. Eastern, so a little bit more normal. And then Sunday, to wrap up the series, At the Trop, it'll be a 1:40 p.m. Eastern start. And I'll do the next week as well, considering we're not talking again until May 19th on my mom's birthday, because, again, I'm taking off next Sunday for Mother's Day. Monday the 13th, the Yankees have off again. So, again, not too many consecutive days before another day off. We like that. Tuesday, the Yankees will continue their road trip heading over to Minnesota. 7:40 p.m. Eastern start for that one. Same start time for Wednesday the 15th. In Minnesota, and then Thursday to round out the 3 games set in Minnesota, a 1:10 p.m. Eastern start, before returning back home to face the White Sox, who are amongst the worst teams in baseball, of course, thus far to start the year. They will return home for the weekend of the 19th. Starting on Friday at 7:05 p.m. Eastern in the Bronx, Saturday will be a 1:05 p.m. Eastern start, and on Sunday the 19th, when we will yap again, it'll be a 1:35 p.m. Eastern start, once again in the Bronx to finish off that series against the White Sox, guys. So that is what's ahead, and given the fact that there is no social media segment, that is all for episode 219 of Yapping Yankees today. And despite the slightly unorthodox / unusual social media-less Yapping Yankees episode today, I still hope that you guys managed to learn a thing or two today, and of course, enjoyed listening to the show. A bit unorthodox, I know, but special circumstances, guys. Crazy day, crazy times. Everything's just lining up in a chaotic manner this year. I even think back to opening weekend, falling on the weekend of Easter, which made me have to take off because I never do a show on Easter Sunday. And I had to wait until the following week to talk about opening weekend. And then now, today being a crazy day, next weekend being Mother's Day, which I also never do a show on, and then the following Sunday being my mom's birthday, which I am doing a show on, but of course I'd prefer not to because I want to spend time with her. But I am doing a show anyway. It's just crazy. Everything's lining up in a weird way this year. My God. It's just annoying. Fortunately, though, like I said earlier on in the show, I love doing this show as much as I do, so it's not a big deal, but it's just crazy how everything seems to be lining up this year. It's wild. But before I leave, guys, a couple of the usual quick reminders that I give you before I sign off. You remember to follow me on all social medias if you don't already, my friends. Facebook fan page, Mike Scudero NY. My Twitter or X is at Mike Scudero, and my Instagram is Mike Scuds97. Subscribe to Yapping Yankees on all 4 of the platforms it is available on as well. That's SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you have to do to show your love across all 4 of them, my friends. It would be greatly appreciated. And if you have the time, listen to any of the past Yapping Yankees episodes that you might have missed, or if you just want to take a listen back to any of them you might have liked. Episodes 34 up to 219 today are all available on YouTube, and every single Yapping Yankees episode that ever was, going all the way back to episode 1, leading all the way up to today, those can all be found on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Once again, though, I thank you 3,000 for listening to me yap today. As always, my good friends, I have been your host, Mike Scudero, and we shall yap again in 2 Sundays. Again, May 19th, when I come at you with episode 220 of Yapping Yankees on my mom's birthday. But until then, guys, the usual things. Hang in there. Be patient. Please stay safe. Look out for your loved ones. Go ahead and kick life's ass this week, as I always remind you to do. Want to wish a happy Mother's Day. A little early here because I'm not going to be with you next Sunday, but nonetheless, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, especially my mom. You are objectively the best mom on the face of the earth, Mom. I know you are listening to this show as I speak. But nonetheless, there are no words that exist in the English language or any language on the face of the earth that can ever express how thankful I am and how grateful I am to have you as my mom over literally anybody else walking the earth. I love you to death. And we're going to make next Sunday extra special, like I always try to do for you, because you deserve nothing less. Love you to death, Mom. And happy Mother's Day to all the rest of the moms out there. Let's hope the Yankees give us a solid week of baseball. Astros coming to town. They're still doing a terrible job. Ton of games under 500. Let's continue to take advantage of that and pick up where we left off when we started the season in Houston and whip their asses all over the Bronx this time. And, of course, have that carrying over into all the following series after that. Between the Rays, the Twins, the White Sox, everybody. Doing really good still with all these series. Have only lost 2 this season so far. Split 1 against the A's, and the rest of them have been wins, my friends. Which would be the reason why the Yankees have the record that they do. Let's stay on this track. Maybe even get some more sweeps like it did against the Tigers this weekend. And hopefully, we have a lot of good to discuss the next time we yap on Sunday, May 19th. But until that Sunday, take care, and let's go Yanks!